Today we are comparing Parfums de Marly's Haltane versus Louis Vuitton Ombre Nomade. Now, the reason why I'm making this video is not because these fragrances are so similar, but I've had quite a few people ask me to do a comparison of these two fragrances. Now, you could say there are some crossover of notes, and they're perhaps fragrances that are in a similar price point, and also there are fragrances that you might wear to similar situations. So I think it's a worthwhile comparison to look at these two oud-based fragrances, and hopefully together we can work out which one is more suited to you. Now at the end I'm going to give you my personal favourite and why I would choose one of these fragrances over the other. So we are going to start off talking about Parfums de Marly's Haltane. I remember trying this for the first time in Harrods when it was first released as a Harrods exclusive. I think that's why they went with this kind of colour. It's the Harrods colour of green. And then after a few months it was available in different shops and you could buy it kind of worldwide. I remember first trying it and thinking it smelled a bit like Oud for Greatness. Now Parfums de Marly and INITIO, who make Oud for Greatness, do have the same owner, or they used to have the same owner. So they're part of the same kind of corporation, the same family. So it was understandable that there might have been some crossover of notes between Haltane and Oud for Greatness. Now I have done a comparison of Haltane versus Oud for Greatness on my channel, so you're welcome to go and check that out. But today we're looking at Haltane versus Ombre Nomade. So Haltane to me is a very herbal oud fragrance. It has the note of oud, but it has herbal notes as well. So in the opening you have these herbal notes, and my favourite note in here, my favourite note in Haltane is this kind of sweet praline note. Now praline to me, or at least the praline in this fragrance, smells quite sweet. It's like a gourmand smell. You could say it smells like truffles or like a chocolatey smell, but it works really well. That note works really well when you have this kind of oud wood note. So the smell of oud wood is quite strong. It can be medicinal. I actually think it's quite medicinal in here. It's like a medicinal version of oud, so you need some kind of sweetness or something else just to round it off and give it a more appealing smell. There's also some spices in Haltane. You have a saffron note, so if you could imagine how this smells, you would think of these herbal aromatic notes like lavender mixed with some spiciness from saffron, and then you have a sweetness from a chocolatey, caramel-like praline and a base of oud wood. Because of the herbal notes, it smells a little bit green, and to me it smells a bit like pine needles. And whenever I smell pine needles, of course I'm reminded of Christmas time, but I'm also reminded of, like, you know, frosty days, cold wintry days, and that is when I would recommend wearing Haltane. It has a real cold weather wintry feel to me. It's not a fragrance I would want to wear in the summer. Now I've been thinking a lot recently about giving fragrance recommendations, because what we do as reviewers is a lot of the time we offer fragrance suggestions. This is a summer fragrance, this is good to wear on a date night, this one's good in the autumn, in the winter. You know, a lot of the time you can just wear whatever you want, and a lot of the time winter fragrances, or fragrances that I think are more winter-esque, work really well in summer evenings, and you can pretty much just wear anything that you feel comfortable with. But as a reviewer, I think it's important to say when I think these fragrances are best suited for. I mean, I would like you to let me know what you think. Should us reviewers tell you what kind of fragrance it smells like? Is that important to you, or do you think that you can wear anything anytime you want? The reason why I say Haltane is a more wintry fragrance is because I wouldn't personally wear it in the hot weather. It's not a fragrance I would like to go for. I like to wear the fresh, citrusy fragrances in the summer, in the high heat. For me, Haltane, it reminds me of like the cold, frosty mornings, the wintry time, so the Christmas time. So I would wear this in the winter. That's how I would get more enjoyment out of Haltane. Performance of Haltane is really good. It's, you know, a lot of the Parfums de Marly fragrances recently have gone through reformulations. They're not as strong as they used to be. Haltane, I don't think, has ever had that issue because it was released after a lot of the reformulations with Parfums de Marly happened, so it didn't go through any kind of reformulation. Not at least to my knowledge. I've owned a few bottles because of my sample website, visionaryfragrances.com. So I've never noticed a drop in performance or a change in the scent profile. The performance on me is really good. I get decent performance and I wouldn't really need it to perform any better. Of course, we're always obsessed with having ultra strong fragrances and they can always be better, they can always perform better. But for me, Haltane performs just right and I've got no qualms with the performance at all. I just love the sweetness in Haltane. The praline note adds such a nice balance to this fragrance that would otherwise be spicy and perhaps dry. I think you know, if you watch my Oud for Greatness comparison video, I think in that video I suggested that I liked Hautane better because of the sweetness, and I still feel that way. I think the sweetness gives this a really nice, enjoyable and inviting character. Now let's look at Ombre Nomade. So now we're looking at Louis Vuitton Ombre Nomade. This is one of Louis Vuitton's most popular fragrances, along with Imagination. Now, I say that because of the samples I sell of Louis Vuitton fragrances. I've got about 6 or 7 different Louis Vuitton fragrances. Ombre Nomade and Imagination are the best sellers on my website. I've never been massively impressed with Ombre Nomade. Not that I don't think it's a great fragrance and I don't think it's worth the money or it smells expensive, because I think it is those things. It does smell expensive, it's enjoyable, you know, on the right person. But for me, I always preferred Nouveau Monde. This is Nouveau Monde here, and it does have some similarities to Ombre Nomade. It's sweeter, has a beautiful caramel note. It's stronger. On my skin, it's stronger. I get better performance from this one, from Nouveau Monde, and it's cheaper. But I'll leave this comparison for another day. I've always preferred Nouveau Monde over Ombre Nomade, but I can really appreciate this fragrance, and I understand why it's so popular. I understand why people really like this, because it smells so well blended that the notes in here are really quite polarizing on their own. You know, you've got spices, you've got rose, you've got oud, you've got like a thick kind of amberwood smell, a spicy amber smell, you know, perhaps even some incense. So a lot of notes in here are quite strong and polarizing on their own, but it seems to be just such a well blended and well made fragrance. And you know, when you're looking at oud and rose fragrances, which is a really popular combo, none of them that I've smell as good as Ombre Nomade. So, you know, that should tell you something. The opening is very strong, and you do get a sense of how strong this fragrance is just from smelling it in the opening. Now, for me, this is dry woods. It's rose, it's amber, and it's spices. They're the notes I get. They're the main kind of accords I get. It's very dry. There is not much sweetness in here. You know, apparently there's a note of raspberry, which perhaps I can detect a little bit, but it's not a note that really jumps out at me. Perhaps there's a tiny raspberry or fruity hint in here that just gives it a bit of balance and a tiny bit of sweetness, but I do wish there was more sweetness in here. That's why I think I prefer Nouveau Monde, because I love the sweetness with those heavy hitting notes. I think just balance out really well. But I can appreciate the manliness and the kind of confidence that Ombre Nomade has. Now, I do think you need to be of a certain personality type to wear Ombre Nomade. I don't think this suits a shy person. It is loud, it's strong, it's confident, it's dominating. So I think you should have the right personality and wear it in the right situations. Certainly not like an office fragrance or fragrance that you're going to wear to close proximity settings. It's a fragrance that does get you noticed because it's strong and polarizing. So performance of Ombre Nomade, probably get better projection than Hautane. I probably get better projection with Ombre Nomade. But in terms of how long it lasts on my skin, Hautane might even be better performing. Hautane does last on my skin a long time, as a lot of sweet notes do, especially on my skin. A lot of the sweeter fragrances do tend to last a long time. So which one do I think offers best value? Well, they are both very expensive fragrances. You know, they are luxury goods, and buying a fragrance, you're not always going to get a value for money. You know, you're buying something that is a luxury good, and they are just very expensive products. Hautane is a bit cheaper than Ombre Nomade, but you know, you can buy the big 200ml bottle, which I think then if you buy the 200ml bottle, probably works out as a little bit cheaper than Hautane. Also, if you really love Ombre Nomade that much, as all the Louis Vuitton fragrances, you can actually refill them once they're empty. So if you want to take advantage of that, you will save money as well. And overall, I think when you factor in those conditions, Ombre Nomade works out perhaps a bit cheaper than Hautane. Which one do I actually prefer? I prefer the smell of Hautane. I just like the sweetness a bit more. And the overall composition and the smell of the fragrance, I just prefer to smell Hautane. Ombre Nomade, I can appreciate, but if I'm going to wear this type of fragrance, I would just wear this Nouveau Monde. I just think it's better. And like I said before, it's cheaper and I get a stronger performance off my skin. Now, which one will get you noticed more? I think Ombre Nomade, out of these two, out of Ombre Nomade and Hautane, I think Ombre Nomade will get you noticed more. It's more of a head-turning fragrance. It's spicier. It's a bit more noticeable. It has that kind of strong, domineering, masculine scent profile. So I think it will get you noticed more than Hautane. But these are both really nice fragrances. They're both really well made. And I think if you're looking for a oud-based fragrance to get into the note of oud, which can be challenging. It, like I said earlier, it can be a medicinal smell. It can be quite a dirty smell as well. There's different ouds there's different types of oud that smells different, but a lot of them can smell quite challenging. However, these two fragrances both smell really nice, and so if you're looking to get an oud fragrance, one of these two would be a good option to try, so you can at least familiarize yourself with how oud smells. So I would love to know, have you tried either of these two fragrances? Which one did you prefer? And which one do you think is the best that someone can buy? See you soon.